Welcome to Speaking Cinema, series movie Jibber Jabber, a movie podcast coming to you live from a smoky jazz joint, nodding along to some of the Coltrane in Hollywood, California. That place probably exists.
Yes, it does. Somewhere.
Follow us on... Oh.
I believe in Studio City there's a jazz club.
Oh, yeah?
Where, of all people, Danny Carey from Tool plays there sometimes.
Jazz?
Yeah, plays like with this jazz group. He plays drums for him. So there you go.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iTunes, Speaking Cinema. I am your host, a no-nonsense podcast instructor, Mr. Jibber Jabber. With me today, as always, my perpetually bloody, sweaty, and off-tempo pupil, Kevin.
That's me. Always off tempo. And sweaty.
Yeah, just I don't want to. I mean, it's in our write up here, and I didn't want to say anything, but you're gonna have to change your shirt. We are Speaking Cinema, series movie Jibber Jabber. If you are new to the podcast, we talk about one movie each week, before and after seeing it, for a contextual conversation in an effort to scream our opinion into the endless void that is the internet.
If we ever did 2 movies a week, that'd be crazy. Couldn't handle it.
It would be, yeah.
Couldn't do it.
Yeah, it'd be a lot.
Impossible.
Unless we were, like, unemployed and or rich.
Yes.
This week on the Jibber Jabber, the pursuit of greatness can take you to the edge. 2014's Whiplash. Starring Miles Teller. Starring J.K. Simmons. With Paul Reiser and Melissa Benoist?
Benoist.
Benoist? No way.
Yeah. That's her, man.
Because
Supergirl herself in this movie.
That's so strange.
Yeah.
Written and directed by Damien Chazelle, based on his own short film. Produced by
Chazelle. Damien Chazelle.
What'd I say?
You said like Shinzel.
I've heard of it. Produced in part by Blumhouse Productions.
Yeah.
And distributed by Sony's Pictures Classics, if you're not familiar. An aspiring jazz drummer attending a prestigious school in New York City. Or no, in just New York. New York City? Do we know?
He's in New York City.
Oh, okay. Enrolls in a class taught by a ruthless conductor. When the conductor sees potential greatness in his abilities, they push each other to their physical and mental extremes. Whiplash. Damien Chazelle?
Chazelle? Yeah.
Second feature film. You know what? We're just going to keep going. I don't give a shit. After a micro-budget, Guy and Melody on a park bench. Have you seen that movie?
I have not.
I've never even heard of that.
Actually, didn't hear about it. I thought this was his first movie. So,
Right.
I only discovered it doing this write-up.
Chazelle. Nope.
Chazelle.
We're gonna get there. Is based on Whiplash, the short. But the short and this movie are based on his own experiences in high school in the jazz band, which is led by a intense instructor.
Those jazz people get passionate.
For what Miles Davis called social music, they really take it serious. He wrote an 85-page screenplay, which was featured on the 2012 Hollywood Blacklist.
A list of most loved unproduced screenplays.
Mm-hmm.
You know what else was on there? The Shallows was on there last year's.
Well, if the Shallows is any indication, this should be good.
Yeah.
Because The Shallows was great. I also, Kev, I'm going to talk about what I don't appreciate. I don't appreciate when people are like, oh, you saw The Shallows, what'd you think? And I'm like, it was fucking great. And they're like, no. How? And it's like, go fuck yourself. Don't ask me if you don't want to think that. You know what I mean?
Take your preconceived notions out of here, because I don't care for them.
With the shark? With Blake Lively? Like, no, oh, I didn't watch that Shallows. I watched a different Shallows. Yeah, that fucking one. Get out of here. He wrote an 85-page screenplay, which is featured on the Hollywood Blacklist. We said this.
Yes.
Then, Blumhouse and Right of Way Films loved it, gave Chazelle
Yeah, you got it.
money to produce a short film so they could use it as a fundraising tool. Went over like gangbusters at Sundance 2013. A $3.3 million budget was secured for the feature. That's how Blumhouse does it. Also, Blumhouse, known for one-room horror movies.
Yep.
Mostly with ghosts.
Low budget, lo-fi horror movies.
Yeah.
Or even big budget lo-fi horror movies, though. I feel The Conjuring's kind of a lo-fi type story.
They didn't do The Conjuring. That's Warner Brothers.
they
They did Insidious.
Oh, okay.
I see how you made that mistake.
I know nothing.
And I think that movie is pretty low. All of those, they keep the budgets low.
I mean, Horror movies, that's why they churn them out. They're cheap and they make money.
Filming took place in LA over 19 days, shooting 14 hours a day. Chazelle was actually in a serious car accident towards the end of production. Not funny. And was able to come back and complete the feature in time.
You gotta do what you gotta do on an indie film.
I always
You
wondered...
don't get any of those insurance days, man. You gotta just hammer it out. It's tough.
Yeah, you don't think anyone's claiming some insurance days? Stanley Kubrick style?
They might.
I like how quietly that's been like kind of just quietly put in the ether, like, yeah, Kubrick would play the insurance company against itself.
For sure.
And it's like, oh, really?
But Kubrick's trick was he had a small crew.
That was also the trick?
That was also his, how he was able to have as many days as he wanted, but, like, keep certain costs down as he had a very small crew.
Yeah. The film, Whiplash, premiered at the 2014 Sundance Film Festival to massive praise. Major awards contender at the end of the year, J.K. Simmons won 47 awards for his performance, including Best Supporting Actor at the Oscars. The film won an Oscar for editing and sound, mixing, which for a movie about music, you can totally see how that narrative would play itself out. Damien instantly became a hot product, has a new film, La La Land, starring Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone, coming out 2016. Teaser's out now. You can go ahead and type that into YouTube. I was underwhelmed by that teaser.
Oh, I disagree. I was overwhelmed by that teaser.
He's just playing the piano softly?
Yeah, but then you get the montage of, like, interesting stuff.
Listen, I don't like...
You're gonna have to see it. Friend of the podcast, Emily, is gonna drag you.
Once she finds out about this movie, there's no chance of me not seeing it. And I will go as far as to say that I want to see it. I like the idea of that. But I'm saying that teaser to me, I've seen better teasers.
All right.
As of this recording, Whiplash available for purchase on digital HD, DVD, Blu-ray, not streaming anywhere. But check your local listings. Why not? Kev, did you see this movie?
I did. I saw it the opening weekend in October in 2014.
Did you see it with a weird double feature?
You know what? Did I go see another movie that day? I may have. I can't think of it, but I probably did. J.K. Simmons was there.
Oh.
He did not do a Q&A. He did one at the previous screen, but that was sold out. But he did do an intro to this screening, so I thought that was kind of cool.
What'd he say?
He talked about how Damien Chazelle is an absolutely brilliant talent who we should...
Chanzel.
Damien Chazelle is just this brilliant talent, and he said he's basically a child, so he's going to be making movies for a long time because he's in, like, his mid-20s or something like that.
It's interesting that you say that because me and Emily were talking about how so many famous movie directors are, like, old men.
Yeah.
James Cameron, George Lucas, Spielberg, like that whole generation. Like so many filmmakers are just like old guys.
Scorsese.
And it's like you see these younger guys, coming out now. But even Eli Roth is 40, which is young in comparison. But like, Damien here is a young guy. The guy who did Green Room is a young guy. It's just interesting to see how it's all. Adam Wingard's a young guy. It's just interesting to see like.
Well, then we see these young guys are bringing a lot of inspiration from the old guys. It's like, how many movies are aping John Carpenter right now?
Yeah.
And Spielberg and Scorsese. It's like all these guys are just finally hitting that age and like the technology is available to them that they can really just live out everything they've ever wanted to do.
I guess on a morbid note, what I'm trying to say is all of those guys are like 70 now, right?
Yeah.
So it's like even if they got a good 20 years left, they don't got 20 years of movie making left.
No. I mean, movie making is an exhausting process.
And I feel like I don't see a lot of chatter about like, hey, every time you hear about a new Scorsese movie, I mean, this might be it. You know what I mean? Like,
he supposedly has one coming out this year.
And he's being prolific in his later years, but it's like, Tarantino is someone who's very honest about this, where he's like, I'm doing 2 more and that's it.
Yep. He wants that 10 and then call it a career,
Yeah. And he's like, but Tarantino, to his credit, when you see like director roundtable stuff, he's like, everyone talks about like, oh, you just have all the time in the world. He's like, but you don't have all the time in the world. He's like, I don't want to be milking it when I'm like, I don't want to be not wanting to make the movie, but making the movie, Yep. It's interesting because I feel like, someone like, no one talks about Spielberg that way. When his movies don't do good, they talk about him that way. But, yeah, I don't know. It's a weird thing.
Then you got guys like there's the good workman-like guys who are in their 40s and 50s making interesting stuff. And then you have...
Like who?
There's David Fincher. I think he's in his 50s.
Man, he's an old man. He's an old man upstairs, if you know what I'm talking about.
True.
So what else?
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting young talent, and I think Damien Chazelle is in this crop of really young, interesting directors.
And I just think that the next couple of years are going to be interesting when all these guys, start putting down the old directing megaphone.
Yep.
And it's like, well, then what happens?
These young guys got to take the mantle,
So what else did he say? Anything interesting?
Just that he loved working on it, and he thinks you'll love it, and then he sauntered away. So,
are you into jazz?
No, but by God, I've tried.
Oh, have you? Interesting.
I've tried.
I got the first jazz record I ever got was like Miles Davis, Kind of Blue.
Yep.
Which is a phenomenal album.
That album's good.
And I've spent the rest of my life like looking like, what else is like this? And it's like, oh, nothing. This is the pinnacle.
Yep.
Shit.
I mean, I tried Miles Davis's Bitches Brew.
Yeah, I couldn't get into that.
Just for me is impenetrable. It's just there's so much. You almost have to know, like, oh, it's this guy's the drummer, and that's why this is great. And it's like, but if you don't have that institutional knowledge, it's like you just can't.
I feel that way about the Watchmen comic, right? Where it's like I watched a video on like why Watchmen comic. They're talking about how it's every panel is the same shape, so they're telling a symmetrical story, right? It's like all 9 panels, they're all rectangles, standing up rectangles, and it's like, oh, like I didn't notice that. And they're talking about how the characters are referencing old comic book things, but there's like other things that are referencing comic book things, and other things are doing this, and I'm like, I don't even understand this,
but
on that level. And I feel like jazz can be the same way.
To talk Watchmen a bit, but Watchmen works just as a story too, is the thing. But that stuff is all kind of little kernels that make it a richer work. Jazz to me is like all those little kernels that make a richer work with nothing else to really get into it, you know? I mean, there's some that's easier than others. I think Nina Simone is fantastic. Mm-hmm. But like her songs, they got Catch a Beat, and you can remember a lot of them. And then most jazz to me just sounds like noodling, I have tried. By God, I have tried. But I just, for some reason, can't get into it.
And it's interesting because there's always, when you go to a record store, there's always a huge jazz section.
Oh, yeah. Because there's so many jazz artists. And it spans so many years.
Right.
Like, I mean, when they were first recording things, it's like jazz was one of the first things they laid down.
And I feel like the perception of jazz is that there's people who are really into it, but they're really into, like, very particular things. Do you know what I mean? Like, eras, artists,
if
concepts.
a certain guitar player is on it, then it's like I find all the records with that guitar player on it, or Charlie Parker on drums or something like that.
In a way that I don't think any other genre has, right?
Yeah.
It's like...
Because the jazz guys, they bounced around so much, is the thing. It wasn't like, Lars Ulrich wasn't in 10 different bands. It's like, if you like Metallica, it's like, it's usually those 4 guys,
Right.
And but yeah, with jazz, there's kind of the one ringleader guy, and then it's all these other musicians. On the same album, you might get like a bunch of different musicians because they record one song with these guys, one song with these guys.
Yeah.
They're not known as such a band mentality.
Right.
So yeah, it's totally different culture.
Yeah. So my Aliens, my Halloween is Miles Davis Kind of Blue.
Yep.
And I like that a lot, but I don't really connect with too much other stuff that I've pursued. And to be honest, I have not really put a tremendous amount of effort into finding other stuff. I've been on Spotify, I've been revisiting stuff from the early 2000s. I'm like, was this as bad as I thought it was? And the answer is yes.
Yep.
Stained, not good. Creed, not good. I was revisiting...
Still not good.
Yeah, I was revisiting...
Hold me now.
That song I actually kind of like. That's my guilty pleasure.
We've discussed that song at length.
I was listening to Fall Out Boy, and I was just like, this is just the strangest thing. Yep. You know what I mean? Like this ruled the world.
How did this ever get big?
But I mean, it's not. But the thing about Fall Out Boy is it's not so horribly dated, right? It's not so of its time.
Yeah, it's not like disco,
right? Which I feel like Stained is like disco, right? Stained is this melodramatic early aught kind of thing.
Just pure nu metal, like, oh, I'm so sad.
Yeah. Really tapping that suburban malaise.
Oh, yeah.
But, so you picked this movie, season 8. You've seen it before. Why'd you pick it?
It's I think with his new movie coming out this year, I think it's just a good time to revisit it, and it's just a real good movie. And I was shocked that you have not seen it yet.
Yeah, it's just one of those ones where you just...
You hear about it. I mean,
you
it
hear
got a
about
lot
it,
of buzz.
it's around, and then you just don't... And also, I feel like award season, it's kind of like... they cram all these movies into this time. And at the time, we weren't living in Hollywood. We were living in downtown LA.
Yeah.
And the local theater that we had there was a Regal. And the Regal had an $8 Tuesday or $6 Tuesday. Well, I don't know. At the time, it was a $5 Tuesday, damn it.
Ooh,
and
$5.
it raised that price $1. The fucking... Anyways, and so we were seeing every mainstream movie for $5 every week, right? So every week you just go down to the theater and see something for cheap. And then eventually we moved to Hollywood, and now we can go to the
ArcLight.
No, Kevin. No, the Sundance.
The Sundance?
Because ArcLight will never give you a deal.
Well,
They'll
no.
never give you the deal. But the Sundance Theater on Tuesday, anyone can get I believe it's a $6 ticket or $7 ticket. So now we're seeing the art house movies for cheaper.
Oh, that's cool.
But it's tough because they come and go sometimes.
It's true.
Like The Witch.
Sometimes you get a 1 week run out
Right.
of those.
Like The Witch is like still playing there, but like Hitchcock Truffaut was like in today, out today.
Yep.
He played it once. It's like fuck. So it's just that we didn't have a way of economically.
Whiplash was just never on in a place that you could easily get to.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Yeah. This is a movie. Many movies come out of Sundance. They get that festival buzz, that world premiere at Toronto, the U.S. premiere at Sundance. It's like that's
Here's the thing about Sundance, though. If you play at Sundance, it has to be your world premiere.
Oh, really?
Yes. That was a rule I didn't know until recently.
Park City, Utah, huh?
Yep. Like,
Interesting.
if you are to be accepted at Sundance, it has to be the first place it's ever played. That's how exclusive they want it.
It's that and the Cannes Film Festival, arguably the two biggest film festivals in the world.
Most influential.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I mean, yeah. Toronto is quote unquote bigger, but like Sundance is the more exclusive.
Right. And I think the biggest one is the Seattle International Film Festival, which I believe is 4 weeks long.
Well, yeah, I mean they kind of, it's like 2 or 3 movies a week.
Yeah,
usually.
yeah. I'm saying like that's
so,
the.
yeah,
I mean,
they stretch it out that far.
So, what do you think about these big film festivals and their place in movies?
I think it's important for them to exist.
It is.
I think it's
a function of marketing. It becomes a level of marketing.
I mean, they've always been functions of marketing. It's a platform of which to sell your film because a lot of these movies don't have distribution or some of them might not even be finished yet, and they need the money to finish it. So you'll show it to investors. Like it's a big open market for people to see your movie. You know, and awards, that's a good selling point. Be like, hey, we won the Palme d'Or, or we won the jury prize at Sundance. That's just something you can put on the trailer immediately and be like, we can sell some tickets to this movie.
Right. Number 6 at the Sonoma National Film Festival.
Yep. But I feel like, in having been to some film festivals, none of the big ones, I'm not that important.
Also, I found out my cousin has a timeshare in Park City, Utah, and I'm like,
What?
What the fuck is wrong with you? You didn't tell me that. Let's go.
Give me some Sundance passes.
I'll take care of your kids during the day, and at night I'll go see the fucking horror movies, and we can just,
Yeah.
we'll eat one meal together, and I'll see you sometimes.
Yep. But there's a general vibe at film festivals that you can't say anything bad about anything. That I feel like, and if you go there to criticize or look at something in a light this not everything that ever gets made is the greatest thing ever made, but you kind of get that vibe when you're watching these. It's like, oh, all of these movies are so important, and it's like some of these are not very good, but then that sort of talk doesn't come out of the festival, unless something gets like booed viciously at Cannes or Sundance, or people walk out of it. There's that push-pull, like movies tend to really get overhyped, and I think Sundance movies really get that overhype, and I think it's just that general vibe of nobody wants to say anything bad about it because we're all here and we're all having a great time, and by God, we're just gonna find the good in everything, you know.
I also think that it's tough. I somewhat agree with that, but it's also the context of what you're seeing it, right? Because if you're seeing a movie at the world premiere, and especially with a lot of these movies, it's like you might not know anything about this movie, right? You might just be you have maybe the title and that's it, right?
That's what they did with Swiss Army Man this year.
Swiss Army Man, and on that same vein, Antichrist was the same thing, right?
Yep.
I don't even think people knew that was a Lars von Trier movie, or if they knew, it was not widely known. So it's like you just sit down and say Lars von Trier movie is called Antichrist. You don't know anything else about it. You don't know who's in it. You don't know anything, and then you're like, what the fuck is this? You know, Swiss Army Man would have the same. It's like, wait, what am I watching?
Yep.
You know, so I think it's. In a way, it's like it's a very pure way to watch something. Because you have you have very little to frame it with.
Yep.
And then I think coming out of that becomes the framework, right? Where it killed at this film festival. This film festival is very important. Blah 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 blah. I've only been to one film festival. That's the LA Film Festival. We went together and we saw Dude Bro
Party Massacre 3.
Yeah, it was a good experience.
It was fun.
I do think that there could be overhype. I think there could be underhype, because I think from what I hear from people who write articles on film festivals, there's always a kind of a backlash. Like, I can't see this. I don't know what it is. So unless there's something built into it, that it's like, it's a Daniel Radcliffe movie. It's Rob Zombie's new movie.
Yeah.
It's this, it's that. It's hard to follow. I do like following it. I think it taps into people who have like the top level of enthusiasm for the medium. Because it's like, oh, what did people think of Rob Zombie's 31? What did they think of this movie that came out? It's called The Woods, and it's directed by
Adam Weingart.
It's supposed to be so scary. And then recently we found out, no, it's secretly a Blair Witch sequel. You know what I mean? Like, there's interesting narratives that I like as an enthusiast.
Yeah.
I will say that the the film festival going experience, in my opinion, is tough. Because, like...
It's an endurance test.
And I want to give a big fuck you to the LA Film Festival in the sense of, I think what they do is great, what they bring is great, but god damn it, is navigating that website nigh impossible. It's like, where is this playing? What time is it playing? What's this movie about? That information is on 3 separate pages.
Yep.
And it's like...
what movies are even playing? Oh, here's like a really arbitrarily categorized list.
Yeah, it's like
give me just a list of the movies, alphabetical order. I don't care. Just give me what's playing.
Well, I would prefer that, like what the Cinefamily does, right? Where you go to the day, and it's like, here's what's playing at what time, a calendar, if you will. And so it's like, I remember it's like the horror collection was called Nightfall, and it took me like literally a week. It was like, where I had to Google, what are the horror movies categorized at the LA Film Festival? And I went to a LA Weekly article that said they're called the Nightfall Collection. Then I went back to the fucking website, had to look them up, then had to go to the other page to look at the times. And then we didn't end up back on.
We didn't go to any of them because we couldn't figure out when they were playing.
And it sucks that it was at the...
it was at the Culver City ArcLight.
Which is very close to where you live.
Walk to it.
Oh, man. So what are our expectations going to Whiplash? People say it's very intense. I'm looking for an intense experience.
It is intense. And I think, as with any movie that I've seen multiple times, I want to see if I get a new understanding of it on this viewing.
And I want it to be watchable. Like, I want it to be something that's like a movie, like a real movie. Like, I'll never watch Room again with Brie Larson.
Oh, yeah.
AKA...
I agree, yeah. It's
AKA
like,
Captain Marvel.
Yep. I mean, I agree that, like, that's a powerful story. It's a good narrative, but, like, you're not going to sit down and just, like, watch that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to be in a headspace to watch that movie. So, I think you'll be surprised by Whiplash today.
All right. Well, let's just get into this and watch this movie.
Here we go.
Here we go. Kev, we're back.
We're back.
How did you watch Whiplash?
I watched my Blu-ray copy of Whiplash.
I also watched your Blu-ray copy of
Indeed
Whiplash.
you did.
Normally I let you start with the overall thoughts, but what I want to start this time.
That's cool.
I think this is a great pick for the podcast, because this is the kind of movie that there's a lot to unpack here.
You're goddamn right. It's a great pick.
No, it is. It really is. We'll get to your other picks later, but that's a separate podcast. But I think that it's a movie that, like it or lump it, You know what I mean? Like, you're probably gonna have something to say about what they've presented to you. You know, and I don't think that anyone can dispute that. I would love to see someone who is just like, I thought it was a little Mas o Menos kind of an experience, And I'll go further to say that this movie is done very well. It is precisely executed, and I think part of that execution makes it feel like a very big movie. Like, this movie doesn't feel small.
Yeah, you never feel like it's this $3 million low budget little indie movie.
Right.
It's like, this is a polished piece of work.
And seeing it, after I've seen it, I was thinking about that, and I was like, when you think about it, there's his dorm room, his father's house,
the theater
they go to, that theater's dressed twice, one for different performances, or a number of times for different performances, in the rehearsal room.
The movie theater his dad and him go to.
So it's like there's 5 locations in the whole movie, but you don't feel that. You know what I mean? You don't feel that. It's in that Blumhouse model of like, we're shooting this on like one city block.
Yep. But if you do it right, you can make that look like 10, 15, 20 different locations, you know?
So I think this movie is, and it'll be interesting to see how you take this. I think this movie is about 2 sick people who find each other.
I think that is a perfect way to describe this film.
Thank you.
That it's 2 people who are willing to go that far to get what they think is the best they can be. And I think
this is in the text of the movie, I think everything that these people say, it's amazing how they pull this off, but I think everything that these 2 characters stand for, J.K. Simmons and Miles Teller's characters, is bullshit. And I think the movie is saying, oh no, this is a movie about like these 2 guys' mental illnesses.
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's, he has his triumphant solo at the end, but at the cost of he loses his girlfriend, he alienates his family, he almost alienates Fletcher, but then they're crazy enough that they'll stick together.
Right.
It's, this movie, it offers no reward except that he's a great drummer now, or has unlocked his inner great drummer.
I think he's unlocked a great drumming. No. I think he's unlocked the ability to showcase his drumming skill, which has been pushed further. But there's an argument to be made that he was never bad at drumming, right? And that Fletcher, okay, because like when you first meet him, he's playing in like the first year band, and they're playing a song and they're kind of noodling about jazz noodling, and Fletcher's like he's giving him all this shit like, oh, not my tempo, which it's, and then you see him do it to other people, so you realize he's just doing that to people, right? He's just fucking with people. It has nothing to do with your skill. You could be playing it perfectly. You could be playing it not perfectly. Fletcher seeks an antagonistic relationship with people, right?
And it's really shown that scene where the trombones are out of tune.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, he's yelling at that one kid and like grilling him, and then he gets him to admit that he was out of tune. Is either the trombones or saxophones? Anyways, gets him to admit, kicks him out of the band,
and tells everyone.
And then he tells the one kid, it's actually you who was out of tune, but he didn't know, and that's even worse. It's like that's a twisted sense of morality,
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this movie never glorifies it. It's like, these are, like you said, 2 sick people who are willing to just be sick together.
So, I do wonder if, and I don't know, because this is not what I got from the movie, but I do wonder if, because there is no direct character who, in the end or at any point, is like, you're both wrong about everything that you believe in, right? The movie allows them to gush their fake view of the world. Like, they're not fake, their phony view of reality.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there's someone who walked away thinking that this movie is made by and supports this straight up savagery. You know what I mean? Fletcher promotes an idea of the world that is without society, right? It's like survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
In the truest sense of that. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're out of tune and you tell him, like, I'm fine, he respects that more than if you admit that you're wrong, which is bizarre. But I think that there's an interesting idea that both these characters have, which is that music is this ideal, destiny is forged in fire, and hyperbole is like truth.
Oh yeah, I mean, he
know?
has quotes from jazz drummers on his wall. The one that's like, "If I didn't have any skill, I'd be in a rock band." Charlie Parker. And that's why jazz is like the perfect music for this movie to explore. It's like if he was being a heavy metal drummer, it's like that vibe's just not there in a heavy metal community. There are guys who are better than you, but it's like we're not gonna drill it if. We're not going to put you into oblivion just to be, like, the greatest guy who ever lived. Because you'll never be as good as this guy, but in that one, it's like, it's always a game of one-upmanship. It's like, and they talk about Charlie Parker would have never been Birdman if someone never threw a cymbal at his head. It's like, is that?
But the thing, we can argue, is that or is that true? But the reality is, that's a story.
Exactly.
And that's a story that is... Okay. I was gonna say this later, but I think I need to get into it now. People always talk about historical bias. When I was a kid, I never understood it, but as an adult, I get it now in the sense that we have a winner's bias in life because if you win, people ask you how'd you win, and if you win, people ask other people how you won. Right? So if Kev became some great director one day, people would go to Mr. Jibber Jabber and they'd say, "Mr. Jibber Jabber, how the fuck did he get there?" Right? And I'd give my part of it, right? But because the narrative is you're so great, whatever story my story is, because he fucking, he just drank every night and you gotta just drink every night to be great. Or if I was like, he's just a great guy and, nice guys sometimes finish first. Whatever I say becomes part of the story.
Yep.
But that is a story that was reverse engineered. Someone is great in the present, so we look back to the past and try to figure out why that is, right? And we're not asking the people who fucking failed why they fucking failed. Because they're not around. We don't know who fucking failed. You failed. Get the fuck out of here. We won't talk about the winners, right?
Yep.
So it's like, when you look at that in life, it's like, what did other jazz players who failed, in comparison, what do they say, right? The fact that someone threw a cymbal at him is an interesting story. It's an interesting story. I'll give you that. But... They take that story and that's the whole story. Someone threw a cymbal at him, he went home, was very upset, came back a year later and played very well, technically. There are people who championed him. There has to be, right? There's someone who's like, hey, that person should have thrown something at you. There's someone who built him back up. That's not how the world works. The world doesn't, you can't just beat someone down and they just come back. Yep. You know what I mean? You have to have someone championing you.
It's an easy narrative to say, like, this was the turning point. And, like, it could be a turning point, but that turning point might take a year to get, like, the ultimate fruition of what it gets to, And there's a lot of stuff that's not as interesting as getting a cymbal thrown at your head that guy had.
Right. Wait, like practicing
8 hours a day or probably longer.
Showing people, his contemporaries, people who are better than him, his teachers, people who are like, no, you're doing good. Like, you got to work on this. Like, this you're doing really great and blah, 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 blah. I think, big picture, a lot of this movie is about objectification. They objectify music, they objectify the musicians, and that obsession becomes their dogma. And they end up objectifying the real world, right? He objectifies his girlfriend in the sense that he's like, you don't know what you want to do and you don't have the same kind of ambition that I have. And the ambition that I have is truth. You know what I mean? Where it's like, but that's, it's not as good as, let's go back to Spielberg, because Spielberg is a perfect story. Everyone's like, oh, he made Super 8 movies when he was a kid. You know what I mean? And that's his, like, it's like, no, he also went to USC and got taught how to fucking use a light meter. You know what I mean? Like, what are you talking about? It's like it's interesting and cute that little baby Spielberg was taking his little baby camera and making little baby movies, and then it just grew and grew and grew. But if his contemporary had failed and his contemporary had also made those things, that's not part of that story. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. He put in the time and the work that's not sexy and not interesting. And honed his craft, which is never interesting. Eddie Van Halen talks about staying home like every Friday night and practicing 8 hours a night,
right?
And not getting the girls, not going out with his buddies, just staying home and practicing in his room by himself,
right? Which is against the narrative of, especially rock and rollers, right? Which is, I woke up, put on my shitty fucking pants, put on my sequin shirt, and I'm just a rock star.
Yep.
I was always a rock star. And it's like, no, and I worked hard to get here, and also, like, it could have not worked out. You know what I mean?
There's for every story of somebody who made it that same way, there's somebody who did every step almost exactly the same and fucking failed.
Right.
Every time.
Right.
There's always that.
And with Tarantino, there's the great story is like he didn't go to film school. He went to the movies. He just watched movies. It's like Tarantino is a diamond in not even the rough. He's like the diamond in like a big old desert of sand, right? And there's just one diamond, and because everyone watches a million movies, you know what I mean? Like that's not, and that becomes dogma. And to that point, my first video class I ever took, which was in college, the professor said, "There's no way to teach filmmaking. So go make a movie, or go make a short, or whatever." And it was like, there's no way to teach us, so just make stuff, right? And that's not advice.
No, it isn't.
Because like,
and also he's wrong.
And also he's wrong, because there's a 180-degree rule line where if you cross that line where the camera's set up, it gets confusing because people were on the left, now they're on the right.
You're disoriented. There's, editing techniques. There's a reason why, you need an entire crew to just run one camera.
Right.
It's like there's a million things in it, and it's the people that learn
What's
all
ISO
that,
mean? What's an f-stop?
And it's like when you learn the rules, then you know how to break the rules, or you're constantly knowing why you're doing it. So,
and I think and this is we'll end this tangent, I think, right here. But I think there's growing up, and maybe people told me this and I was just too stupid to figure it out, or maybe no one told me this and fuck the whole world. But there's this idea that like Jimmy Page didn't know how to read music. You know what I mean? Or not Jimmy Page. Jimi Hendrix didn't know how to read music, right? And he was the greatest guitar player of all time. It's like, he was the greatest guitar player of all time for a multitude of reasons, right? Learning how to read sheet music will not hurt you.
yeah.
There's no level
I bet you he wished he knew how to read sheet music.
And there's no level of education on a topic, especially a topic that you're passionate about, that will ever hurt you.
Yep.
It will only make you better. If you're really into fucking hot rods and you learn everything about cars, from the engineering to the style to the everyone likes to focus on the style, right? Like I want to chop and channel it. I want to have this and that. I want to have white wall tires, and it's a '57 Barracuda and not a '37 Chevy whatever. That's all great, and you can learn that through osmosis of reading fucking car magazines. But like getting down to the nitty gritty of like how engineering works will not hurt your ability to make a cool car. It just won't. And I think that like that's an important thing for people to know. Like going to people like don't go to film school, just make movies. It's like, you could do both. Going to film school will not make you a worse filmmaker. It'll make you a better filmmaker.
Yep.
Because you will learn things that you don't know. It won't make you a great filmmaker. You won't graduate from fucking AFI Film Conservatory or USC or UCLA or Chapman or NYU. You're not going to graduate from that and it's like, great, now here's your $100 million. One Avengers movie, please. That's not going to happen. But you're not going to go to NYU and come out a worse filmmaker.
Yeah. That's never going to be a detriment to you. Mm-hmm. So, cycling all back to Whiplash.
So I think there's a thing that's understated in this movie, and maybe this is just me with my own interpretation, but I feel like they want to make music into football, right? Where it's like just play harder, smash mouth jazz,
or even like the military.
Yeah,
like, I mean, this movie was always described as the jazz version of Full Metal Jacket.
That's a great description.
And that's essentially what it is, right? It's just these scenes of like pushing you to your absolute limit, tearing you down so you can be built back up.
But that's the thing that doesn't happen. He doesn't build that people up.
That's true.
The absence of hatred, the absence of his contempt is his ability to build someone back up, right?
And any time he is kind of soft and buddy and kind of lets people in, Fletcher, I should say, it's always as a means to like catch them off guard.
Right, to meet them there. It's never an honest build you back up. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that in a creative process, everything that we've ever done, right? This podcast, shorts we've made, stuff we've written, right? You do need both. And you need both. It doesn't help you if everyone tells you you're great, because that's not true. It does help you if someone says, this is what I don't like about it, so it's why we do in this podcast, it's why we do nitpicks followed by cool stuff. Because you need someone to break you down, tell you this sucks, this is not good, I don't understand this is not a good choice, and blah, blah, blah. And then on the flip side, here's what I liked about it. Here's what you're good at. Here's what I found to be evocative, right? You need both of those things. Because people can get discouraged. And a premise of both of these sick characters is that the greats will never get discouraged because they are guaranteed to be great, right?
Yeah.
But did they have it both ways, right? Or it's like it's destiny, but destiny is only focused. Destiny only occurs if someone is an unbelievable monster to you.
Yeah.
And it's like, why would that need to be a part of destiny? Why would that need to be part of the system? If it's destiny, if you're gonna be fucking George Lucas, doesn't the middle part not matter because it's the concept of destiny?
It's just gonna happen, right?
And in a world with free will, destiny is not real. So if you believe in free will, there is no destiny, right? Because everything can happen anyway. I don't know. Go ahead.
All right, so I'm a huge fan of editing as a means to. It's the art that separates film.
And by contrast, I hate it. No,
you're a bad person. This might be
not my tempo.
Oh, you bastard! This might be the best edited movie of all time. It might be. It's up there. It's in the top 10.
It's what's interesting about it is it's not. And I think cinematography and editing combined.
Oh, yeah,
It's not flashy. It's not like it doesn't feel showy ever, right?
Yeah.
It just feels evocative. So like in the beginning, he's setting up his drum kit or whatever, and he sees the redhead guy come in, and he kisses his girlfriend, and there's like a smash cut to like them, like a close up of them kissing.
Yeah.
Back to Miles Teller. Smash cut back to the girl's ear and the guy touching the ear, and you get a sense of longing from Miles Teller there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because they establish pretty early he's kind of a loner.
Yeah, they do. And then later they confirm it.
Yep. Oh yeah, they confirm he's borderline sociopath. Because it's not just the editing and the music scenes gives you that feeling of listening to music. It's just in a way that I've never seen done in any other movie before. Like, it's fast, but every cut is doing something and it's purposeful. Even if they do like someone's playing their trumpet and it's like wide shot and then a really quick cut to a close shot of that trumpet, then to the drums, then to the bass, and it's this beautiful. It could have been an absolute mess, but it gives you that just huge feeling of like getting engrossed in music, the way that I feel when I listen to songs I really care about.
Right.
And then in no better way do they do this than at the end in that final drum solo that he takes on. It's just that scene. I mean, he's doing his thing. They know when to slow it down. And yeah, people when they say, "Oh, this movie's edited well," they usually mean it's edited really fast. And this movie has fast moments, but it has these very great long shots of like Fletcher walking over, and then he's like, you can see in his eyes, he's like, okay, he's trying to do something great. So he's like, bring it down, and then he's on his drums, and then he's like, bring it back up, and then the editing kind of gets frantic again. Big pushing shot, smash, credits. It's like, every time I watch that, I'm like, woo, when it's over. It just, God, it's just good. But then you get moments like when he's breaking up with his girlfriend Nicole.
Yeah, dumping Supergirl.
And yeah, he's talking. The scene we were just talking about, where he's talking about, it's I'm trying to do something great, and you're not like on that level. All it's doing is it's on her face, and it's just pushing in. And you see her heart breaking, and it's all just one shot. And it's like that's editing too. It's knowing when to stay and when to go. It's
like the blues. It's the edits you don't make.
It's the edits you don't make. Yep. So I don't know. It's just this movie is just fantastically put together, and I can't believe it's a first time director doing it. Second time.
First time. Yeah. That scene is interesting to me because that is the advice that everyone gave to me when I was graduating from college. They're like, break up with your girlfriend, move to LA. If she wants to go to graduate school, like you want to work, you know what I mean? You're not gonna have time for this shit. And I was like, I think you're all fucking assholes for telling me this. You know what I mean? And it's like, as it turned out, they were. Everyone's
I don't know about your experience, but when I got here, it's like most of these people are just kind of normal people.
But that's the thing is, everyone who gave me this advice was someone who like later you just realize like you're just saying these things because you think you should be saying them. Like it's like I remember
you got that Bay Area bias too.
Yeah, they do.
So big time.
Very biased. And then I remember I met a guy who was he was working on commercials and stuff. And he's like, yeah, man, you can never be late. You can never be late, ever. And then everything I ever worked with on that guy, he was always late. And I'm like, at one point,
that guy.
I remember asking him I'm like, hey man, like, I was breaking his balls a little bit. I'm like, you're always late. And he's like, no, I mean, these people know me. It's like, I get maybe what his point was, if no one knows you, you can't be late. You can only be late if people know you. But it's like, there's always that like this dogmatic view of things where it's like, it has to be this way. And it's like, does it? I don't know. Maybe that's like the burden of having ambition is that you view everything other than your ambition as like a distraction from the ambition, from the thing that you want to do. But it's like, but the thing you want to do is you don't know what that is. You only know of your perception of it, right? It's like when you're growing up as a kid and all the jobs you want to do, right? And you're like, I want to be a rock star. And it's like, but you don't know what being a rock star is like. You don't know what it's like to sign a shitty contract that's totally one-sided. You don't know what it's like to be in a van for 2 years, travel in the world. You know what it's like?
Making $15 a night, and maybe somebody of importance will hear your music.
Right.
Maybe.
And you don't know what it's like to make art, put it in the world, and have people immediately dismiss it as stupid.
Yep.
You know what I
something
mean?
you've poured your heart and soul into, and people go, that sucks, 2 stars.
Or even worse, they don't even bother with it. They're like, just because you made something doesn't mean I have to give a shit. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that's something I don't think people learn. It's also something that I think is present in this movie where, it's their view of music, it's like, music is about a time and a place, right? And I think this movie expounds this idea that music is about like the military, right? It's about being the best technical drummer ever. But when you look at the people who are the best technical things, that's not the reason why we love them, right? Like, Travis Barker is a really good drummer and drums on a lot of different records and stuff, but people like the object that is Travis Barker. This guy, he's tattooed, he's kind of a handsome dude, you know what I mean? He he's
DJs, he doesn't just drum,
Right, you know what I mean? Like,
but then there's a guy like Ginger Baker, the drummer for Cream, who is, by all means, probably the greatest drummer who ever walked this earth. But there's a whole documentary about how much of an asshole that guy is. Beware of Mr. Baker.
Right.
And it's like, at what cost,
right,
to be the greatest.
Well, but that's another thing that's present in this movie, which is, it's like, some people will do everything in their power to be the best, but some people will do anything to be the best, right? And I can't advise anyone on. I would advise do everything in your purview to be the best, right? Because then you'll be true to yourself. Because if you do anything to be the best, you might lose it. You know what I mean? And sometimes that works out for people, and sometimes it doesn't. You know what I mean? But you have to be true to yourself. But going back to the technical thing, right? It's like you look at 2 people who could arguably be the best guitarist players of all time: Prince and Buckethead. Right?
Go on.
Prince tapped into this thing and became a cultural icon, and later faded from view in terms of mainstream exposure, but always had his core.
Never not present.
Right.
He might not be number 1 on the album charts, but it's like he's gonna sell out 21 shows at the Forum.
Right, yeah, exactly. And Buckethead never really connected with any kind of big audience. Right? If you're really into rock and roll music, really into guitars, maybe you have one of Buckethead's 40 albums. But
one of Buckethead's like 200 albums.
But like, just being good at music is not enough, right? Like, because then everyone's favorite musician would be Christina Aguilera, because she could sing every note. Yeah. She has a 7-octave range, right?
Yngwie Malmsteen would sell 5 million copies of an album,
right?
If all it was just to be technically proficient, then Yngwie Malmsteen and Buckethead would be our 2 greatest living artists.
And in that good job speech that J.K. Simmons gives in the movie, he talks about jazz is dying, because people aren't pushing themselves. But it's like, if jazz is dying or not, and I mean, it's like, listen, again, my personal view is that all art is the center of every art universe is yourself, right? So it's like, but if jazz is dying in the same way that things that are losing popularity globally or whatever, it's like, it's not dying because of people aren't drumming as fast as they can, which has nothing to do with jazz, because jazz is not that far up tempo beat, right? Of 16 notes, 32 notes. It's like, that's not jazz music. It's like maybe it's dying because it's not conscious in the times, right? Like jazz used to be rebel music, then rebel music became rock and roll, then rebel music became rap, right? So it's like, and we're also talking about chasing superstardom, right? And it's like, yeah, there hasn't been a jazz superstar in like, 50 years, 60 years, but the times have kind of passed jazz by. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you can't be bent back. I think a lot of things can be bent back, but it's just an interesting. It's like music is about connecting with an audience. So you look at the Sex Pistols; they had no talent, but they tapped into something that was going on at the time. And I say that with I love the Sex Pistols, but they're not good musicians.
They knew they had no talent. They would unplug Sid Vicious's bass sometimes because, like, dude, this motherfucker cannot.
Yeah, he's just fucking rolling on fucking heroin right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like there's something that like Prince found a connection to the world. That's why Prince is Prince, and that's why Buckethead's Buckethead. And maybe Buckethead's happy being Buckethead, and Prince is happy being Prince, and they would not be happy switching.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's this idea. It's an idea in the movie that like if you're good at technically playing something, that is greatness, and that should achieve you notoriety. But that's not true because you have to tap into what people are interested in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. It's stunning how they can get this many big themes about art and the capacity of talent into just this very compact hour 40-minute movie.
And usually we talk about
and a very personal story, like what they would call the worldview of this movie. Or my professor called it a range. Mm-hmm. Like, how much of the world do they acknowledge? Like, it's a pretty small bubble they keep in this.
Yeah.
It's just like his family, teacher, school, Charlie Parker, certain jazz artists, and like that's kind of it.
Right. There's no scene of anyone grocery shopping in this movie.
Yeah.
That's not important to anyone.
And it's just this very, it's so many big themes in just such a small space, and it's very impressive.
Right. And on that note, usually at the end we talk about our sequel pitches, but this podcast we're just all over the place, and I love it. I would honestly like an honest sequel to this movie. Right. And when I say honest sequel, I mean, not like, we're, same, I want the same people back. I don't want a remake. I don't want like a redux. I want a sequel. I want Damien to come back. I want Miles Teller to come back. I don't know if J.K. Simmons comes back for a prominent role, but
I think what if we go on a little tour road trip with these guys? Put these guys on the road and see where that goes.
Well, I want to see
jazz tour.
I want to see Miles Teller post college trying to make it, and I want to see, in my opinion, what we should see is him flare out because he's too obsessed with perfection to create anything. Right? His own work he can't get done because he's chasing
Yeah, what if he gets studio time booked? And he just
he wants to do retakes
it all away.
Yeah, retakes. And
it's you can't put any perception as to this is how much time you have. We literally can't afford to give you any more time.
And I'm in the school of I'm in the Jack White school of music, right? Where it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be.
Yep.
And hopefully it just what it is being is interesting. Because in that documentary, It Might Get Loud, he's like, so part of this song is that play the guitar down, walk 2 steps to the piano and start playing the piano. So sometimes I want to put the piano 3 steps away to see what happens, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, that is interesting.
And they don't have set lists at their shows. It's just like, whatever we're feeling, we're doing that next.
Right.
I've seen Jack White live a couple times, and he never plays the same thing twice. Mm-hmm. And he might do it a little different that second time. He might use a different guitar than he used the last time with different tones on it. And it's always that he talks about just teetering on the edge of chaos, and that's where there's just a lot of juice in there. It just is really good.
But and if you can, tap that energy into audience, I think that's interesting. So I want to see this guy in that world. I want to see him join a band, right? And they're like, bro, we're just we want to have fun with this. We want to, if we take it seriously, we want to take rehearsal seriously. Everyone has to be on point. We don't like it when people mess up, but if you miss a note or something, it's not the end of the world. If you ruin the song, it's the end of the world. But you know what I mean? And I want to see that character put in these situations where he's in the studio, where he's on the tour, and his dogmatic view of music doesn't jive to the reality of the world, right?
Even in the reality of performing jazz live, it's like what if he starts alienating those people? Even the hardcore musicians are like, fuck this guy. Mm-hmm. I think that's an interesting story there.
I would love to see it. I also want to, now that we brought that up, when J.K. Simmons, after he gets fired and he is playing, we see him we see him in the jazz club, and he's for the first time we've ever seen him play music.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And he's playing like this really soft song. Like, would you make anything out of that?
I think it proves that, one, J.K. Simmons can play piano, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Two, that Fletcher, he's not just this guy, he's not just this no-talent loser who never got anywhere. You know, like, he's actually, he has everything to back up his reputation. Like, he can roll with these jazz guys, he can play a little club, like, he knows music, like, on a level, on as high a level. He's not here just to be an asshole. You know, he knows jazz music, knows how to play it, can play with a band, can get a gig booked. It's like, it really puts a more human face on him. So yeah, I think that scene is very important. There's actually a scene they cut out. It's on the Blu-ray, and it was supposed to be early in the movie, and I'm kind of glad they cut it out, but it's, you go home with Fletcher.
Oh, interesting.
And he puts on this jazz record, and he kind of just like sits alone, and if I may be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure he cries. But like, if you put that early in the movie, that, I think that humanizes him way too soon. You know, so I think it was a very smart decision to cut it out.
But I also think that there's not it is a a student-teacher relationship. So I think humanizing him that way doesn't help that narrative. And I think that, like, you know, Fletcher is too much of a manipulator for us to really feel bad for him.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's that ultimate, you know, he meets him in the restaurant. He's got nothing to lose with Miles Teller. Andrew Neiman. And yeah, he talks about, kind of pours his soul open to him, and he's like, hey, guess what? Why don't you come play with this band? And then that's just a whole ruse to, like, fuck him over, because he's like, I know you got me fired. It's like that. He never changes. He's always manipulating.
Right. And every time he says, honestly, guys, he's like, you know, he's fucking with people. Do you think that he stole the kid's book of drum notes?
If it wasn't him, he was behind it, of like telling somebody, if Neiman loses these drum notes, take it away. Or like, somebody's like, those notes just don't, there's such a short amount of time that those are just sitting there and then gone, that it's like somebody was in on it.
Right.
Whether it's Fletcher or somebody Fletcher told, if Neiman ever puts these notes down, just run and grab that phone.
I do think it's a master stroke from, I don't even know who, the people who made this movie, everyone, to the way that's executed, where he puts it down for 1 second, it's gone in that second.
Yeah. He like looks at two guys, takes a sip of his Coke, and then he looks down, and then it's gone.
Right. And then Fletcher later in the movie brings it up. He's like, "Oh, those notes mysteriously disappeared, right?" And that's it. And that's all we need to know about that. I love that. We're going long here, but I don't care. The uncle versus the kid at the dinner table scene.
Oh, this whole dinner table scene is great.
Okay, so time-wise, the scene is not very long. It is like a 2-minute, 3-minute scene. Emotionally, I think it's still happening in my heart. But what I like the most about it is that it both makes you sympathetic towards Miles Teller's character, but while still showing that he is a dick.
Yeah.
And that is a needle threaded, right? That's like, you know, you're throwing the string across the room and it goes through the eye of the needle, right? And that is impossible to do. Mm-hmm. But what's interesting is that if you think about that scene, he's telling them, I am the #1 student drummer in America, maybe the world.
Yeah.
Arguably the world.
At this prestigious school, which is just a stand-in for Juilliard, basically. It's like...
Right.
But then, what this scene does, it's like, it shows that most average people don't know even what kind of accomplishment that is.
Yeah.
But his cousin or whatever is like, oh, I got on the football team. And they're like, oh, congratulations, wow.
98-yard touchdown
Yep.
on the Division III football league team.
Yeah, I mean, he says football team, and Miles Teller is like, Division III. Like, anybody can do that. That's 2 steps down from, like, big college football. So
Right.
And yeah, it's but your average folk get that. They know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he tells them, oh, I'm like the #1 drummer, it's like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
And like, that's where the whole tension of that scene comes from. It's just, people don't get it, you know. Your average Joe, even though his dad is somewhat culturally affluent, they go and see Rafifi, for God's sake, at a theater, and it's But yeah, it's like they don't really get the like. They don't know what the difference between a good drummer and a great drummer is.
And the exposition of that scene is great, right? It was like, you got any friends? Like, I don't see any need for friends. You know, and it's like, that's such a great thing where we learn, like, Miles Teller, it's you know, is he a little, like, you know, does he have a mental, I don't think he has a mental disability. I think that he is, at this point in his life, just obsession is just his whole thing. Yeah. And I like how the exposition where they're talking about, like, Charlie Parker, you know, it's like Charlie Parker didn't have any friends, and he's like, well, you know, one day we'll be talking about our friends. It's like, none of us ever met him. That's the definition of success. You know what I mean? And he's like, and then the dad's like, dying at 35 full of heroin and broke is not my definition of success. And there's such a great exposition that of, one, who's Charlie Parker again? Yeah. Two, the dad loves his son, right? Yeah. He's like, I want you to be a successful drummer, but I don't want you to be like this, you know, story. And you understand that Miles Teller, it's back to that objectification where he is like, the story of success is burning bright and getting out early. Yep. You know, he's like, that's success. And it's like, that is not success. That is one guy's story. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's like, why do you want to just fucking be a rock and roll cliche, like a stupid tragedy where you fuck up everything? And he's like, yeah, well, that's what it is. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people think that way.
If everyone remembers your name, it's like, that's more important than the people you lost along the way. People
love, like, you know, the best country singers die in classic cars, and it's like, no, what? No, I don't want that to be my life. I want to write a number one hit record when I'm 103 and then croak. Yep. You know what I mean? Like,
pretty much what Johnny Cash did.
Well, that's Johnny Cash, yeah. But, you know, we don't romanticize that, you know?
Exactly. So, I mean, that was a hard scramble hit he had to get, you know, but he got it.
I've never seen a scene indict a character so much and in the end make him sympathetic. And when his dad, it's a very understated. I wonder if they could go back and redo it. They would redo it with a dad because, like, wait, you think we're not a good team? Why don't you come down to the field and play with us? Yeah. 4 words you never hear from the NFL. Yeah. And then the dad says, and from Lincoln Center, which is such a fuck you to his son, right? Uh-huh. And I feel like, do you think if they could have done it again, they would have made that much more of a pronounced delivery, like and from Lincoln Center, like, and you show him counting those 4 words? Yeah. I had to think about that. I'm like, and from what do you say, and from Lincoln Center? You know?
I mean, yeah, it's just this very, like you said, Paul Reiser, he loves his son to death, but is not putting up with any of his crap. You know, so that scene is very pivotal in this movie.
Real quick, I just want to say the action in this movie, and by action I don't mean car chases, I mean just what we see, is so good what they do and don't show you. There could have been a scene where Miles Teller has to tell his dad that he's joining a band led by J.K. Simmons again, and they don't do that. They just go from the invitation straight to the performance. Mm-hmm. No, did he rehearse with them or not? We don't know. You know what I mean? I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of the music scenes are shot like action scenes. Mm-hmm. You know, just, you know, these just very big camera moves and, like, you know, the cutting, and it's just, this movie is exciting. It's very watchable. Well,
and on that note, the ending scene at the ending performance is the Avengers versus all the Ultrons, right? It is a battle. It's a war with battles that are won and lost. There's back and forth. There's, you know, there's a whole story in that scene, and it's mostly told through visuals, where J.K. Simmons is like, fuck you, I'll fucking rip your eyes out. Yep. Miles Teller throws the drum up in his face, and then he's playing, and he's like, he goes to the bassist, he's like, I'll play you in, come in. Yeah. Boom. And then, you know, they start all playing together. And it's like the movie's kind of wound down, and then they just give you this action scene. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. Anything else before we get to nitpicks?
No. I think a lot of my stuff I'm going to flesh out in our nitpicks, cool stuff section.
Raisinets and popcorn, that's just a mouthful of yuck. Disgusting.
I mean, I'm all for the sweet, salty, but yeah, Raisinets, that's the wrong choice.
What would your choice be?
M&M's. Oh my god, M&M's popcorn. The best. I want one more scene with Nicole, because I feel she's kind of there. They're dating. We get the text conversation, then it's breakup. It's like, I don't quite get a whole arc from her, so one more little scene.
Well, I get your desire for that, but I feel like there is just such a beautiful poetry to how it happens, right?
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like
The breakup scene is great.
but the whole thing, he gets with her, and you can tell he likes getting with her, and he's whatever. And then this other thing, his obsession just totally railroads the rest of it, right? So he's not hanging out with her. He breaks up with her for all the reasons stated, and then the fucking I loved it. And I watched the movie with Emily, and there's such a poetry to this scene where he tries to get her back.
Oh yeah, when he calls her after Fletcher's been fired.
Right.
Okay.
And he assumes that she would stay put because he is chasing destiny and she is not, and he feels like she lacks any kind of ambition. But the reality is, he has a huge fucking ego and she's going at her own pace.
Yep.
And he has no sympathy for that, right? So there's such a quiet poetry where she's just like, I gotta ask my boyfriend, and he's shocked.
Yep.
Right? He's like, she moved on?
She's moved on.
She did anything? And it's like, yeah, dude, just because she doesn't know what she wants to do for the rest of her whole life doesn't mean that she's not a functioning person. She has a job. She, is into movies, presumably, you know what I mean? Has an opinion on pizza.
Yep.
She's not... It goes back to objectification. It's like, you are inert. That's not true. I love that. And I feel like if you had that scene, I would want that scene if it didn't fuck up that dynamic. I'll take another scene with her if it didn't fuck up that dynamic.
All right. Agreed. Good point.
And I remember I was like, what? I was like, my head was spinning, and Emily was just like, no, he has, it's his ego. And I'm like, of course. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna be one of the best, and you don't even want to be one of the best because you have no ideas. So good.
That's about the only nitpick I have, actually.
The movie feels long not because any scene I think overstays its welcome. I think it feels long because it's so stressful. It just takes a toll on your body, and I think you just get tired.
The three-way drumming scene is just exhausting as it looks.
Right. It would be. I think it would feel tighter if it was a worse movie. In that sense.
Okay.
In that sense.
I can buy what
well, if you weren't so physically, by the end of the movie, you're just like, just die already.
I mean, at the end of the movie, it's like riding a roller coaster.
Yeah.
You're just like, holy shit, and then you just collapse.
Yeah. You're like, I just need to get a funnel cake and just have a minute.
Yep.
Any cool stuff you want to get into?
Lots of cool stuff. Lots of good little quotes in this movie. Fuck you, Johnny Utah, turn my pages.
Yep.
Great. Let's see if you're in first chair just because you're cute. Yep, that's why. Mm-hmm. It's lots of good one-liners.
Music is cool. Drumming is cool. Nicole's burn, like, hey, I was wondering if you want to go out with me sometime. You need to leave right now. Like, holy shit! That was just like, she burned him. And I was like, damn. That's the fear you have. Anytime you ask a girl out, that is like, when people are like, what's the worst that's going to happen? That's the worst that's going to happen.
Yep.
That is the worst. In your mind, that's the worst thing that could happen.
You burnt.
Also, going back to your funny quotes, where for the second college he's going to, and the dad's leaving, he's like, I loaded the pantry with gushers.
That's a good dad right there. Why would you want to alienate that dad? The movie never feels like it's in LA. It always feels like it's in New York.
Yep.
So that's impressive.
Even when it's clearly in downtown LA. Only because I know.
Only because,
there's a street there on, like, oh, that's that street with all the twinkle lights on it.
Yeah. But it's never like, oh, yeah, we're in the NYPD. It's like, you're in San Fernando Valley right now. So, I like that when Fletcher puts the CD in of the kid who died in a car wreck, and he, like, plays it for the class. It says Dr. Fletcher on it. Mm-hmm. But you never see Fletcher really push that reputation on people in a way. Like, he never corrects anybody and says, oh, I'm Dr. Fletcher. It's just like, he's just known, and he never kind of has to stoop to a level of, like, use that as a way to be powerful. It's like everybody just kind of knows his reputation. So I thought that was a nice touch.
Do you think that Fletcher is sad because that kid is dead, or do you think Fletcher is sad because that kid never achieved greatness before he died?
Option B, never achieved greatness.
And then he's like, fuck, I thought he would be maybe one of the ones.
He thought he was the guy. But then, and that last shot of his eyes at the end is when he's like, this guy's my one. You know, that's crazy. You can tell that the music is actually being performed.
Yeah.
Which is a huge pet peeve of mine in movies. Most recently, the biggest culprit was Jersey Boys, Clint Eastwood's movie. Fuck, that movie is bad with, like, instrument.
Like they're playing the wrong notes, or you can just tell they're just not
You
playing
can tell they're just not playing it. It's like, this classic Jersey Boy song has like this guitar run in it, and nobody's playing the guitar run in it. They're just kind of like moving back and forth, and their fingers aren't really moving. It's like, that's a huge pet peeve of mine, probably only because I play guitar. But in this movie, you can really tell, like, there's some actual talent behind who's playing these. So, that's it.
In the end, Miles Teller, and I think this is everything we've been saying. He's on the drums. They're gonna play a song he has no music for. He starts playing. Why play anything at all? Just don't do anything. Just sit there, and let the fucking band play. Right? You don't have the music. What are you gonna do? Improv it? But he does. That's what he does, right? And that's his gigantic ego. I remember again. I was like, why is he doing that? And Emily again. Because he can't not play. He's too egotistical for this.
He can't be the one put in the spotlight and be like, you're the loser, you're the phony.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what Fletcher wants. He wants him to sit there like a deer in the headlights.
And that's the thing about that ending that's so great is that, and if people don't understand why Fletcher is so mad, he's like, you got me fired, fuck you, I'm gonna embarrass you in front of all these important people. And then the fact that he doesn't, because in the scene previous, he's like, Miles Teller asked him, is there too far? And he's like, no, because because the greats would never, there's nothing that would ever discourage greats. The fact that he comes back, the fact that he throws it in Fletcher's face, he respects him because he's created something that is his vision. You know what I mean? That is it's perfect.
Mm-hmm. It's just a very sublimely made movie.
Do you think it's morally wrong to push someone to such extremes, even if that's their desire?
If that's where you want to go, you go there. But know the consequences. Know what you're going to do.
To do it in this way, I think is, right?
In a teacher-student role? Yeah, I think so.
Well, in a teacher-student role, and you're not building anyone up ever. You're not saying, hey, you're great, I'm trying to make... Because, like, everyone in my life who's ever acted like this, right? Like, when I was, like, in karate or whatever, they have literally been like, listen, man, I think you're good. I'm trying to push you hard, right? So, like, I know it's, I know I can be a jerk sometimes, but I'm trying to do something here. And they really take that step back and do that meta kind of like, listen, it's not real in the moment, right? I'm just trying to, like, push you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And 10-year-old me trying to get a black belt in karate was like, okay, I guess. But I think to do it in this way where you're literally being like, I am an authority on this. I am Fletcher, who is this prestigious dude, and you're worthless. That is morally wrong.
Yeah,
right?
I think so. But if you're reaching out to somebody and saying, push me that far, it's like, if that's what you want, you do it. But yeah, to just be a teacher and pushing everybody to that standard, there's something morally fucked up about that.
I would never be, that's not how I'm wired, you know what I mean? But even if I was trying to do something like that, it'd be like, okay, if I'm kicking you out of my band, I'll get someone to put them in your band. Because, like, obviously you had enough talent to play with us for a while.
Yeah.
It's just a weird thing that sucks, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Do you think that greatness is achieved through physical and mental devastation?
It's hard to say, because greatness is kind of different for everybody,
Correct.
Schmendrick agrees. Is it great for you that you're fulfilled and are doing what you want, or is it that you want your reputation to, like, stand on its own, basically? Or even, it's like, is it more important for your name to be known but you flamed out, or is it just like, yeah, that guy's reliable, he's great, I love playing with him, but you're not Ginger Baker, it's...
And I also think that this myth is this idea is perpetuated on the idea that there are no gatekeepers in the world, right? Which is a very, I'm gonna get political here, rich guy kind of thing to think, right? Where it's like
the moral crusaders,
right? Yeah, it's like there's this American worldview where you take what's quote unquote yours, right? And it's like that's not how life works. I didn't take my job. I had to ask someone for it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's this idea that, like, in pro wrestling they do this, right? Where, like, when they train you to be a pro wrestler, a lot of people are really hard and really dicks and beat people up and, like, really physically assault people. And it's like, It's like, well, I gotta make you tougher when you get out in the world. But it's like, but there's no guarantee in the world. So basically, you just want to beat someone up, and then if they make it or not, you're not helping with that process either.
Yeah, it's whose ego is really getting stroked. Is it the person you're trying to train, or is it yours?
Exactly. And yeah, I also think that success is part of a momentum, which is a collective hysteria that we all live in, right? If enough people tell you that Miles Davis is one of the greats, you trust that they're right, even if you don't know anything about jazz. Even if your experience with jazz is the time you spend in elevators. Yep. You know what I mean? Like, well, Miles Davis, he's one of the greats. Like, I don't know anything about jazz. I know that I like that Miles Davis album, but people tell me that Bitches Brew is a seminal album. I believe them because they know something about jazz. You know what I mean? And I think that I don't know. It's a weird system, and I don't think it really tracks.
Yeah.
Do you think the movie condones Fletcher's actions?
I think just what we were talking about. No, I think it shows, like you said at the top of this episode, they're both just mentally ill people, mentally illing on each other. So yeah, I don't think it ever glorifies and says like this is the right way to do it.
So then, in the end, all things considered, do you think this movie doesn't work?
Yes and yes. I
agree. I think this is as rated as this movie was. I do think it's a little bit underrated. I think it is.
I think so too.
I think it is a powerful tale.
It's only, and like a lot of movies in film festivals, it's like maybe that was a good movie that year, but then like compared to other things, it's like there's certain better things and whatever. This movie is good. Any year you go back in time and show it to people, it'll be good. It's like, this is just a really phenomenal film.
Also, a Blumhouse movie, and you're like, the horror guys? This is a horror movie.
There's horror elements.
This is a crazy story about obsession.
Somebody says he'll fuck you like a pig. Yeah, it's a horror movie. Yeah.
Adding to my sequel pitch, the end of my movie is Fletcher. As Miles Teller begins to fail, Fletcher abandons him.
Yeah, I like that.
And that's because he's like, you're not one of the greats.
Or what if he does try to maybe salvage him, but it's already too late? What if he's like deep into a heroin addiction, or he's flamed out and is homeless? It's like, what if that's when he's like, maybe I've gone too far, but he's already pushed him beyond the limit and he can't save him. Yep. Yeah, I think there's a lot. You could definitely do a sequel to this.
I do think that Fletcher is a kind of a character that would never learn anything, though. The problem with him is that he thinks he has learned it all.
Yep. I mean, it's that old jazz guy kind of mentality of, it's like, this is what's great. And that's it.
It's that old guy mentality.
It is, old guy mentality.
That's it for us. This episode written by Kev, music by Jeff Russell. I'm Mr. Jibber Jabber. That's Kev. Our voices are tasty treats for your ears. Enjoy them. Until next time, keep the beat going. Not my tempo.